Something silent, formless, and nameless moved through Egypt. It recognized signs, but ignored voices. In homes, it stilled breath wherever it passed. Children died in their sleep. When judgment comes in the name of God, it is often preceded by portents, trumpet blasts, fiery manifestations, messengers. This time, however, there was nothing visible, only the morning awareness that something had passed, leaving behind an oppressive silence. And this something required no name. In the book of Exodus, 10 plagues descend upon Egypt. Rivers turn to blood, frogs swarm the land, flies choke the air, boils erupt on skin, hail destroys crops, locusts finish what the hail began. Each plague escalates the one before it, intensifying pressure. It is a demonstration of power, both vivid and strategic. A confrontation followed by consequences. The message is repeated loudly each time: let them go. But Pharaoh refuses, and the mechanism of warning gives way to something else. Thus arrives the 10th plague. It simply happens. Exodus 12:23 records it in a line easily skimmed amid instructions. Yet what it describes is colder than all that came before. The Lord will pass through to strike down the Egyptians, but when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not permit the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you down. There is no name or description of what the destroyer looks like, where it comes from, or how it moves. Only a hint of a being, or perhaps a force, that is held in check. And when it is not restrained, it carries out something irreversible. In Hebrew, the word used is ha-mashit, the destroyer. Not just any destroyer, but the destroyer, the one appointed for this act. The term mashit denotes one who brings ruin, yet reveals nothing of form or identity. It is defined solely by what it is permitted to do. The earlier plagues were theatrical. Turning the Nile to blood was an affront to Egyptian religion. Frogs, insects, disease, weather, all targeted specific elements of Egyptian life and belief. They could be interpreted, resisted. Even in their horror, they were declarations. But the final plague is a verdict. The blood on the doorposts is a sign, an instruction to be followed. The destroyer does not judge those inside each house, does not read hearts, examine conduct, or ask who deserves mercy. It responds only to the sign. If blood is present, the command is pass over. If not, the command is enter. And once it enters, the result is immediate and final, followed by absence. That absence defines it. The Lord will not allow it to enter. That is the boundary. There is no sense of interaction beyond that moment. The Israelites are spared not because they are morally superior or have proven their worthiness. They are spared because they obeyed a specific command. Their deliverance comes through obedience. Religions have tried to name what the text leaves unnamed. Interpretations emerged, assigning familiar roles: accuser, reaper, filling the silence with borrowed identities. But none of these attributions belong to the passage itself. They reflect discomfort, attempts to make sense of a force that offers no such clarity. Elsewhere in Scripture, agents are introduced with specificity. Names are given, voices speak, appearances are recorded, even figures of opposition are given character. Here, there is only a task, only the destroyer, only action. Enemies can be identified, observed, confronted, resisted. They exist within narrative, cause, conflict, consequence. But the destroyer comes, destroys, and departs. What passed through Egypt that night was the execution of an instruction, a silent obedience to an invisible condition. By morning, there were no traces of its presence, only the weight of what had been removed. First, no voice remained to explain why. The destroyer is terrifying because it never needed anything, power without a face. In a narrative so often reliant on divine encounters, where angels speak and rise up, where visions overwhelm and names carry weight, this moment breaks the pattern. Something is permitted to kill, yet nothing about it is revealed. To name it would be to place it within a structure. To define it would be to imagine a means of resistance, but the destroyer exists only to pass through. The destroyer reappears in moments when death comes swiftly. The pattern is familiar, something is unleashed, something is halted, and between those points, people die. In 2 Samuel, King David sins by ordering a census of Israel. The act seems minor, but is interpreted as an affront to God, a decision born of pride or distrust. In response, David is offered 3 punishments and chooses the one that leaves time in God's hands, a plague across the land. What follows is quiet devastation. The land witnesses silent desolation. 70,000 lives fade. According to the text, an angel, stretching out his hand toward Jerusalem, was about to continue his deadly work, but was stopped by a higher command. The destruction ceases not by his will, but by order. There is no indication the angel chose to withdraw. He merely fulfills his mission and halts only when commanded. The same tragedy is retold in 1 Chronicles 21, but the narrative shifts emphasis. The catastrophe has already occurred. 70,000 are dead. The story then pauses on a single image, a figure suspended between heaven and earth, sword unsheathed over Jerusalem. The city holds its breath. The sword remains raised. David, seeing this figure, steps forward and offers himself as atonement for his people. The angel remains motionless. The plague recedes only by command. The sword lowers. The action stops. In Isaiah 37, the Assyrian army besieges Jerusalem. The city braces for siege under the pressure of one of the era's most formidable empires. The text bypasses military strategy and diplomatic intrigue, moving straight to the fatal night. While the city sleeps, 185,000 soldiers die. The angel of the Lord acts with flawless precision. Silence falls where the clash of armies was expected. At dawn, the Assyrian camp lies still. Bodies cover the ground. The momentum of conquest simply vanishes. The king retreats to Nineveh in chilling silence. The siege ends before it truly begins. The threat is erased in shadow, an act of pure execution. Every command is fulfilled. Every blow is absolute. Only the dead remain. These accounts document a force that is unleashed and then recalled. They describe death delivered with sudden finality, halted only by a higher decree. This force remains inert until the moment of choice. It acts until the word of restraint is spoken. Through these stories runs a unique function, static, silent. It exists beyond names or honor, an extension of will, a delegated presence, a sanctioned act. It appears, executes, and departs. Though the text refers to the angel of the Lord, the phrase remains obscure. It serves to denote messengers. It serves for visions. It serves as the hand of God. Yet here, it remains enigmatic. The text ignores the figure's identity. The actions are too severe for symbolism. The God of the Hebrew Bible often speaks, intervenes, punishes, and relents. But in these moments, he uses an intermediary. He releases a presence that avoids communication. He bypasses discussion. He ignores questions. When God speaks, understanding remains possible. When this figure acts, only loss remains. The plagues of Egypt demonstrated power. This demonstrates something else: divine will stripped of relationship. Judgment is delegated to a force bearing only its task. After the act, humanity sought structure. The destroyer left only consequences, so the instinct was immediate: give it form. Assign it a name. Create a memory the tongue could hold. Rabbinic scholars turned to the past, drawing from known figures: Samael the accuser, Azrael the reaper. Later readers turned to Revelation and found Abaddon, commander of the abyss. None of these figures emerged in the moments of Egypt or Jerusalem. Each was borrowed. Each attempt reflected a need to tame fear. The results remained fragmented. Jewish commentaries diverged. Christian writings shaped the figure in prophecy. Mystical texts placed it within hierarchies. Each attempt collapsed under the weight of its own speculation. The need to name reveals a human impulse. Names contain. They bring force into language, art, symbol. Once named, a force can be analyzed without being felt. It can be softened, integrated. The destroyer denied this concession. While other agents carry war or messages, the destroyer wholly rejects narrative. It manifests through effect. It fulfills a command. It allows no negotiation between appearance and action. This isolation defines it. It remains distinct from recurring agents of intervention, standing apart from adversaries with motives or history. It is the release of a force that destroys everything in its path. God concealed its identity because the act required no frame. It was a function created for a single task, too severe to grant memory. Attempts to name it only dispersed fear. They fractured truth into avatars and doctrines, legends and myths, none capable of containing what had been unleashed. The destroyer remains outside all of this, a presence untouched by theology, a proposition that lingers long after words end. The destroyer is never named, but throughout these same scriptures, another figure appears, with voice and form. In the burning on a dusty road, the angel stops to argue with a prophet. This is the angel of the Lord. Sex 2.0. Consider this figure as a diplomat. By nature, a diplomat is a messenger bearing urgent news. He listens carefully to both sides, then negotiates. As long as the diplomat remains in the room, there is room to alter events, to influence the story. But when the time for dialogue ends, the diplomat departs, and a mechanism activates, leaving no space for further discussion. Consider the nature of a soldier. Even the most disciplined warrior, flawlessly obedient, may experience inner conflict, a glitch in obedience, in humanity. Seeing a child or an innocent family, the soldier might hesitate, protest inwardly, whisper, "No." Conscience acts as a brake, preventing unconditional compliance. The destroyer, however, is a soldier without such glitches. It is closer to an algorithm than a person. An algorithm feels no hatred for the user. It takes no joy in executing a line of code, nor guilt in deleting a database. It is hardware designed to recognize a specific signature. If blood is on the door, the code reads, "Pass over." If the door is clean, the code commands, "Execute." Herein lies the horror of perfect obedience. We usually fear rebellion, demons, chaos, villains pursuing twisted aims. We fear them because they are wild, unpredictable. But the destroyer represents a force tamed to terrifying perfection. It has no aims of its own. It is so absolute a servant that it lacks ego, hesitation, even a name. It is an unfulfilled command echoing from the depths of the universe. When God addresses Moses, he appears as a person. When he releases the destroyer, he acts as a system. We find comfort in personhood. We can appeal to heart, to feeling. We recoil from systems because one cannot plead with the laws of physics. One cannot negotiate with a machine. What we fear most is a command executed too perfectly. We can look into their eyes and understand their hunger. We can bargain with a predator who wants something from us because it has needs. But the destroyer offers no such recognition. It embodies the terror of the absolute. It is the moment the universe ceases to be story and becomes gravity. It is the weight we feel in our modern age, realizing our lives are governed by forces that require no personal presence to act. The cold, clean geometry of power, capable of removing life as easily as a hand brushes dust from a table. It is a predator that does not eat to survive. It is fire that does not burn for warmth. It is clinical self-erasure, a surgical strike upon the soul. This is the legacy of the nameless. It reminds us that beneath layers of mercy and relationship lies a coldness in the sacred. There is a part of the divine that does not care for your biography or your virtues. It is the part that sees king and slave as the same mathematical requirement. There is no struggle because there is no one to fight. There is no plea because there is no one to hear. This is the supreme expression of power, the ability to act without ever being present. The horror of the empty throne, the realization that sometimes the hand of God is simply emptiness moving through a room. It comes to finish you.